To love God is to know God, and to know God or love God is to love our fellow brothers and sisters. And so whoever fails to love his or her neighbor cannot claim to know God. You cannot claim to believe in God if you cannot believe in the sanctity of human life. If you cannot believe that we are all made in the image and likeness of God. If you cannot believe that we are all brothers and sisters, then you do not know God. Then you do not believe in God. Good morning, my dearest friends, and welcome to this Sunday's reflection. Today is the 6th Sunday of Easter, and the theme for our reflection today is, why should I keep God's commandments? We are reflecting on 3 biblical passages from today's Liturgy of the Word. The first reading from the Acts of the Apostles chapter 10 from verse 25 to 26, and then 34 to 35, and then verse 44 through to 48. Then the second reading is taken from the first letter of St. John chapter 4 from verse 7 to 10, and the Gospel of today is taken from the Gospel of St. John chapter 15 from verse 9 through to 17. Why should I keep God's commandment? My brothers and sisters, this question comes to you and me. Do I keep God's commandment? Or rather, should I keep God's commandment because I am afraid of hellfire? Should I keep God's commandment because I want to go to heaven? Should I keep God's commandment because I need something from God and I want to get that thing? In all this, the Gospel of today tells us why we should keep God's commandment. Jesus tells us, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. And so, we keep God's commandments because we love God. Or we should keep God's commandment because we ought to love God. What are these commandments? Jesus himself has summarized the whole of the commandments for us into 2. The love of God and love of neighbor. Those are the commandments that Jesus has given to us. Do I love God? And does my love for God express itself in my love for my neighbor, my brothers and sisters? The second reading of today from the first letter of St. John tells us that to love God is to know God, and to know God or love God is to love our fellow brothers and sisters. And so whoever fails to love his or her neighbor cannot claim to know God. You cannot claim to believe in God if you cannot believe in the sanctity of human life. If you cannot believe that we are all made in the image and likeness of God. If you cannot believe that we are all brothers and sisters, then you do not know God. Then you do not believe in God. The first reading of today from the Acts of the Apostles gives us a practical example of what this love entails. Before now, the Christian community was dominated or populated by Jewish tribe exclusively. But the first reading of today tells us about the household of Cornelius, a Gentile who has now embraced the faith. that the Christian faith is open to all. It is not exclusive. It cannot be monopolized. And that is what St. Peter preaches in the first reading of today. Because we are all brothers and sisters of the same Father who is our God. And so, my brothers and sisters, as we celebrate this holy day, let us reflect on this interplay between the love of God, the love of neighbor, and also how it translates in our keeping God's commandments. Let us ask the Lord for the grace, for this inspiration, for the enlightenment, that the Lord will cast out those things that are preventing us from embracing one another as children of God, as brothers and sisters. God bless you.